So, Meg, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me, Jessica. I'm so excited to be here. I have been
Yes,
a fan since your first episode.
thank you so much. I have noticed your loyalty and you leaving reviews and on social media. So it's so cool now to have to talk to people that have been listening since the beginning. So I really appreciate you being here, and I can't wait to learn about you. So for you, let's start at yoga
Okay.
for you. So when did you first find yoga, and what has been your journey with yoga?
It's been an interesting journey. It hasn't been one of fully immersed yoga. I think I first started yoga somewhere in high school, just taking a couple classes on and off, and same with college. And just take a couple classes here and there. And I always really liked it, but it wasn't what I needed at the time. At the time, I needed something a little more high impact, faster, and but I always went back to it. And I really liked the yoga classes that were more real fast paced asana, just really really strong movements. That was just more my style back then. But after I had kids, things changed. I had a long career in television and newspaper journalism, which was very, very stressful and very wonderful and exciting. But after I had kids, things really shifted, and I started to notice that um, my oldest daughter was starting to pick up on my anxiety and my stress, and just sort of like mirroring that back as kids often do. And I was like, okay, this is the path of parenting that I want to go. And I needed to step back. And I had been wanting to do. And I just needed to really take a moment to pause and to step back and think, okay, I need to check myself with my levels of stress and anxiety, and so I can better help my child. And and so I always knew that for me, when I was really stressed with my career in journalism, that it was the yoga class that would eventually come back around, and I'd be like, oh yeah, I love yoga. I need to do this more often. Why don't I do this every day? This is the best thing. And so I just was like, I need to get her doing that with me. And so I put my yoga mat out, and she was little, and so she'd crawl all over me and think it was mommy gymnasium time, and that was super fun. And we would kind of do poses together and mess around. Um, but then I started digging a little bit deeper, and I found a studio here in my neighborhood in West Seattle that did family yoga. And so I got her own little yoga mat, and we went and we had so much fun, and she loved it, and she was always so happy. And so unfortunately the class was just like once a month, and with life we couldn't make it every month, and I would get really bummed when we would miss it. And so finally I was like, I can do this at home. I know enough yoga. Then, she's my kid. We'll just mess around and do some stuff. And I got the yoga pretzel cards, and we would play, and she would pick out pretty cards that she wanted to do, which she's 9 and she still does that. She's like, let's do yoga. I want to be the yoga instructor, mama. And so she'll get the cards out, and she'll be like, let's try this one, and come up with some crazy pose. And I'm like, okay, let's go for it. But yeah, so I just really, I wanted more. Like most things in my life, I was like, okay, let's just go for it. And so I found a training with Seattle Kids Yoga here in Seattle a couple years ago. And I haven't looked back since. So it's
So
just,
that's amazing. So are you still working in journalism, or did you end up leaving that career path to
I
follow
ended up
this one?
I ended up leaving that career path. I do have a full-time job still in communications, but it's not as crazy and demanding as a television journalism career was. I don't have to work nights, holidays, and weekends anymore, which is lovely now that I have children. But there were many, many, many holidays where I would like have to call my parents and just be like, hey, how's Thanksgiving?
Hmm.
From the newsroom and stuff like that. So yeah, so I don't do that anymore, but it's still part of who I am. I'm through and through news nerd, and I've always been a writer. So I found ways to infuse that into my classes in the form of journaling and giving the kids journals. And it's amazing to me how much, when you pull out the journals and the elementary kids are like, we don't want to do that. And then you're like, let's think about this. and you give them some colored pencils and some fun questions. And I'm like, you don't have to write, you can draw. And then they just sit, and it just lets their imagination and their hearts go. And the little writer nerd in me loves that.
I love that. That's the best thing about kids yoga is no matter what background you're coming from, you can infuse who you are, what you love into your classes. It's so amazing to the people I talk to that have, all the different types of paths that led them here. So yours is so unique in that you had yoga in your life and it came in and out, but then there just became a point, it sounds like when you had your own children, that you were like, I want this to be a bigger part of my life. So is that why you started kids yoga with Meg? Once you were teaching your daughter, did you say, maybe I could reach more children?
That's exactly right. I loved the family yoga classes, and I loved just the connection that I had with my oldest daughter. My youngest at that point she was a baby, so she would just kind of watch us or crawl on top of me and lay on me, which she's now 6 and she still likes to do when I would do yoga. She invented a pose called bear cave, where I'm the mama bear and it's actually downward dog. And then I do the downward dog and she crawls under me and she's like, I'm your baby bear, mama bear. So we call that bear cave in our house, and she loves it. But yeah, once I started doing this, I was like, this fills my cup. This fills my cup. I love this. And I wanted to offer more family yoga and more kids yoga in my neighborhood and my city where I live. And so I just worked out great, because at that point I had become friends with the yoga studio where I had started taking family yoga. And I just went to her and I was like, hey, I love your studio. You know me, you know my kiddo. I am now certified. I would love to start helping you out and teach some classes. And she was like, great, let's do it. So I started teaching family yoga at a studio here in West Seattle. And then I picked up another studio in West Seattle as well, a couple months later. So this was all pre-pandemic.
I was going to say, so this was July 2019.
Mm-hmm.
So you started pre-pandemic, and so you were teaching at the studio. So then how did everything pivot and change for you once the pandemic hit?
It was, well, like everybody else, just surreal. And we, here in Seattle, we were the first epicenter of coronavirus once it first was discovered here in America. And, at the time I had been teaching a 6 weeks family yoga class on Sunday mornings for a studio here. And I had already been sent home from work in early February. They said, okay, you're going to go home for 6 weeks. And I was like, okay, cool, 6 weeks. I can do 6 weeks from home. No problem. This will be great. And I had my last class, and I remember it was a yoga obstacle course where we everybody would like move around, and I had different stations set up. And I remember just putting all of my props out all over the studio before everybody got in. And I was like, oh my gosh, all of the germs. Are the moms going to let their kids touch my stuff? Do I want them to touch my stuff? And, so we came in and, the kids were playing, and the moms and I kind of had a conversation about it. And we were like, oh, it's just 6 weeks. It's going to be fine. This is great. And then we did our last class, and I just remember shutting the door and locking it and getting out my Clorox wipes and wiping everything down. And I was like, oh my gosh, is this the world that we've come to? And at the time, the studio owner was like, let's do another class. Let's start next month. And I was like, let's see where things are going to go here. And everything just within the next couple of weeks just dominoed, as the world knows. So my one classes, we paused at that particular studio, and then we moved online at the other studio for family yoga. And it went okay for a couple of months, but then I think people were just, they had some Zoom fatigue. And I was very, honestly, when I look back on it, it was so stressful. And I was still working a full-time job that had sort of ramped up in my stress. And I was now homeschooling, a kindergartner, and no, she was in preschool at that point, and a second grader. And so I was like, for my own mental health, I had to pause everything. So I put the brakes on kids yoga with Meg, and I had to put it on the back burner, which was very sad for me. But I just was like, I have to put my oxygen mask on first. And that's a hard realization, because I had spent a year and a half building this up, and just wanting this so bad. And then I was just like, okay, well, I can't, I physically cannot do this. We can't leave our house. You know, I have Zoom fatigue. My kid has Zoom fatigue. I don't want her on any extra meetings, which was hard because I was wanted to teach classes. But at the same time, I was like, kiddo, you got to get off the Zoom calls and get yourself out into the backyard. Um, but then when, excuse me, when school rolled around here in Seattle, it was all online. And I had also been, in addition to my family yoga classes, I had also been doing a kids after school enrichment class at my daughter's school. And that was just so wonderful and fun. But of course, they weren't doing that because they weren't doing in-person school. And so I went to the PTA president and I was like, let's do a free class for anybody. Let's just open it up, free. And so we started doing a weekly class for anybody in the school who wanted to join for free kids yoga for 30 minutes once a week. And then in the beginning, I was also doing a family class once a week, once a month. And that was pretty fun. And I'd have a couple families join, and that was a lot of fun. But we ended up just focusing on the kids because I was like, you know what, these kids need all the tools they can get right now. So just sort of infusing yoga poses and some mindfulness and mindful breathing, and just kind of also talking about what is going on in the world, and then some games, a lot of games. The kids just really wanted connectivity with their friends, and so I figured out quickly how to give them that online because I love to play games, and so I figured out real quick how to make yoga games online fun and interactive, and so they would want to play.
Mm.
So that's and so now here we are, 18 months later, things are starting to open up here in Seattle, and I have just decided it's time to get kids yoga with Meg off the back burner because this is what fills my cup, and we're just sort of starting over again. And hopefully I can get back into the schools this September. It's very, at this point in the game, it's very iffy if that's going to happen, but I said I would do online again, and hopefully we can try to figure something out. But the schools aren't, not sure what's going on yet over here.
Right. Oh my goodness. Yeah. I mean, it sounds like you started it, it was starting to grow a little bit, then the pandemic hit, and it just was impossible at that point to keep it
Right.
going. But it's so great that you slowly started offering those classes, and just like even learning how to lead an online class for kids, it's so different than being in person. So
So true.
it's good you got that experience. Now moving forward, what are your goals for, I know it's like still so much up in the air, but what would your goals be for kids yoga with Meg? Like what kind of
Well,
classes do you want to be offering?
yeah, so I've actually taken advantage of our Zoom life here, and I have got a few more trainings under my belt. So I was like, now I don't have to worry about childcare and not having to leave town to go to a different training. I'm going to take advantage of it. So I've taken a few more certifications with some mindfulness classes, and then I took tween and teen yoga training from Flow and Grow from Laura Hawkeiser.
Mm.
Last year as well. And so I want to expand the offerings because I just feel like, we teach, they teach kids about, you got to get them early, especially girls, for like science and math, but we don't give them the tools to teach them to like, quote unquote, calm down. That's not something that they teach. And, as a parent, I'm guilty of this when my children are having moments of just upsetness, and I'm like, oh, calm down, you just got to calm down. And I'm like, the words are coming out of my mouth, and I'm like, that's not what we need to have here at this moment. And so I'm trying to infuse more of that into classes to give the kids the power within themselves to know that they have this, to be able to just stop and to take a moment and to take a deep breath and just collect themselves and just have a moment to go, you know what, it's going to be okay. I'm upset right now, and that's okay. It's okay to be upset, but I can just pause and take a moment and then move forward. And so I think I want to infuse more of that into my classes. And I want to start reaching out to the teen classes, to get some more teen classes as well, which I haven't had the opportunity to because there's no schools, and I've been working with a couple of Girl Scout groups to do some of that. I have done a lot of private classes this past year and for Girl Scouts, and oh my gosh, they are so much fun. I love it, and that really has that's been really helpful. It's helpful for them, and it's just so helpful for me as well, because then it takes a moment for me to like stop all the craziness in my life and just be like, you know what, I need to go focus on these kiddos over here, and we need to do some fun yoga and play some games. And for some of these Girl Scout troops that I have been working with, they've never even met in person. Like they only know their friends online, and so anything that I can do to help foster those friendships through silly yoga games that they think are so much fun, then I'm just honored to be part of it.
Yeah, oh, that's wonderful. So sounds like you're really interested in the full age range, but like those family yoga and the teens, I think those
Mhm.
are two important places. Family yoga, I know some kids yoga teachers find challenging because they're not sure how, it's like they're good with kids, but they don't know how to interact with the parents and how to like make everyone feel welcome. Do you have any kind of tips or like even just like your favorite parts of teaching family yoga?
For me, family yoga is really important, and that is one of my sweet spots that I'm hoping to start up again, because it's easier to go out to a school or an aftercare group and be like, oh, I can offer virtual kids yoga. That's kind of easy to do, but for finding a venue for families has been a little more challenging. So I am definitely hoping to get that up and running again. But I think it is intimidating. Like there were times, especially when I first started teaching, because at the time I didn't have my 200 hours, and so I'm like, it would come in, and these families would come in, and some of these parents would be like super hardcore yogis and could do all of these moves that I cannot physically do. And so I'm like, okay, I just have to like take a moment again and just be like, I am not here to teach that parent. I'm here to teach the family. And they're here for the same reason I am here, to connect and have fun with their child. And so I just would, every time I would have a class, and there would be that voice in my head like, oh my gosh, these parents are so much better than I am. And I'm like, no, no, no. I'm the teacher. I'm in charge. I've taken the training. They're here because they want my service to do these fun clap moves with their kids and to learn a few new things. And so, there would always be a moment in my classes where at some point one parent's going to apologize for the way their kiddo is acting. And I would always say, you know what? There are no apologies in family yoga. I am a parent. I get it. I have been there. I have been there. I have been to the class where my kid is like climbing all over me and just giggling and running around and not doing anything. I mean, like I have literally been there. And so I just try to tell the parents that we are all here for yoga. And our little yogis are going to kind of lead the class. And if they decide they're running around and yelling and having a lot of fun chasing each other, which is a true story that totally happened in one of my classes, and the parents were just like so mortified, and I could see it. I was like, okay, you know what? I think it's time for a yoga dance party. Who needs a yoga dance party? And then immediately all the kids were like, we do. And because I also don't want the parents to feel uncomfortable in class and just be like, oh my gosh, look at my kid, because that's not what family yoga is about. It's about meeting the kiddos where they are. And the parents are usually so grateful that I've taken that pressure off of them, or I've tried to at least. And I'm like, let's do a yoga dance party. And then I'm always asked if somebody wants to help lead the yoga dance party. And it's usually the ringleader who has started the little running around party that's like, oh, I do, and so you can tell that they, that's what they want to do and shine. So then I'm like, all right, I need some help. Let's think of some poses, or then I'll get like my cards out, and I'm like, I need a little help teaching class today. Who can help pick out some poses? And the kids are always like, we want to. So, I think it's just taking the pressure off the parents and letting them know this is a safe spot for your kid to be your kid. If you got a 3-year-old little boy who likes to run around and giggle and laugh and yell, then let's just let him do that, because I think we'd rather him do that in a safe space than in the kitchen. So, let's get the wiggles out before we go home, or at least attempt to get the wiggles out. And hopefully mom and dad can also get a little bit of a workout and a little bit of some mindfulness in before they head out the door.
Mm-hmm. I think that's so important. It's like setting that expectation, because you're going to have different kinds of families come in, and some, I've seen that too. There are sometimes when the mom or the dad is this seasoned yogi who's expecting like an adult yoga class and they come in and then it's like, huh, this is different. But it's
Mhm.
setting that expectation from the beginning, like this
Mhm.
is yoga for your family, we're going to focus on
Right.
the children. This might not be a big physical workout for you, but we're going to get in that mindfulness. And it's, I think once people see it, it's just something different, and then they start to understand.
Right.
Also, as a parent, I that feeling of being like embarrassed or just like trying to hold your kid back, feeling out of control, like you're being judged, to be able to leave that
Mhm.
outside that room and to have a teacher just be like, and to see you, it sounds like that's exactly what you do. You go with the energy of the children to see you, how you respond to it, saying, oh, I need some help, and to channel that energy into having
Mhm.
them help you lead. I think it leaves the parent feeling better, and the kids are like, oh my, like she sees me, and they're not being scolded, which they might be during school for the same kind of behavior. They're able to just like bring that natural enthusiasm in. I think it's just family yoga, it's just such a powerful thing, and I think it takes this also a special kind of person to be able to teach that. So it sounds like you're really doing a good job with those classes.
Thank you. Yeah, I know. I think setting the expectation when, especially for like families that have never been to my classes before, I would always say, okay, if you're looking for a hardcore yoga workout, you may have to do that another time, because this is a different type of yoga workout, and it's not even so much a workout. It's just more of a, we're gonna play and we're gonna get some movement in, and really I would always try to infuse mindfulness and a relaxation exercise into class, because we've struggled with, in my house, we've struggled with bedtime and anxiety and like the little busy minds at bedtime for so long. So every class I teach with parents, I'm always like, this is a really good exercise for the end of the day, when we have a busy mind and our bodies are tired and it's time to go to bed, but our minds are wide awake. This is a really good exercise, and you can do this at home. And parents would always be like, so I'm like, yeah, do. I'm like, this works at my house. This one sometimes works at my house, and this one used to work, but now we've done it too many times, but it worked for us at one point. So, I have pretty much tried everything that I teach in my classes. So I can just say, this is what we like. This works for us. This may help you. It may not, but here's something to try along those lines. So, I think leaving families with what I call, tips and tricks, little tools to take home off the mat and infuse into your everyday life, I think is so important. And so I always love to leave those little nuggets with the parents or the caregivers to try at home when things seem a little crazy and we need to just take a moment. And I always encourage people to just like break out into a yoga dance party at home as well. Now you know some moves. So next time you got the radio on, let's just have a yoga dance party. So the kids always like that. And sometimes they'd come back to class and they'd be like, we did a yoga dance party. And I was like, great. Can you help me lead it this time? So it's
That's the
just,
best. That's the goal,
it
is for
is.
them to learn that yoga is not just in the studio or in the school, wherever you are. Yoga, you bring it with you and you
I know.
take it home with you. And that's the power to a family yoga, because you've got the parents seeing this too. So they're the wheels in their mind spinning. Oh, I could maybe try this at home. And the kid,
Yeah.
it feeds itself, because then the kids are also maybe excited about something else. And yeah, I just think it's such a powerful offering for families to practice together.
It is. And it's even like when I was teaching the kids after school class at my daughter's school, one of the parents came up to me at an event and was like, my daughter now has a mindfulness corner. We made a mindfulness corner in her bedroom. That's what she wanted for her birthday. So she got a yoga mat, and they put a quiet area so she could go with some pillows and her yoga. And I was like, oh my gosh, this just makes my heart happy. And then the daughter was having so much fun, she got the mom to come with her to one of my family yoga classes. And so they came to one of my family yoga classes and they had so much fun. And it was great. And it's not a hard workout. So the mom was a little nervous. And I was like, no, we're just gonna do some stretches and have some fun with our kiddos. And they had a great time. And so I just seen the connectivity between even just teaching the kids and what they can take off the mat and take home, when you always have those moments where you're like, are they listening to me? Same with like your own kids. I'm like, are they even listening to what I'm saying? And then I'll catch them like when my oldest needs to calm down. Sometimes I found her one time in her bedroom and she was sitting in front of her glitter jar. She was just sitting there kneeling and breathing. And one day, one of her teachers a couple of years ago had told me about an incident where she was upset at class and she was trying to calm her down. And my daughter was like, I need to do my breathing exercises. The teacher was like, let's do breathing exercises. Okay, let's do this. And she sat there and she smelled the flower and blew out her candle for a few minutes. And then she just went along her merry little way. And I was like, oh, they are listening to me. This is great.
Yeah. Those moments as a parent are the best because I would say like 90% of the time I'm like, I don't think they're listening. I don't think. And then you have that one moment you go, okay, yeah. In those harder moments when your daughter's able to take those tools and apply them, that you're planting those seeds for her. So that's powerful stuff.
I know. I'm like, I'm doing the right thing. So that just makes me, when I see it in my kiddo and I hear about it from other parents, I'm like, okay, this is the right path. I am on the right path and I need more of this. I need to get more of these mindfulness moments into the classes, especially when, little kids they can just be, that's their own world, is their own little world where we stop for a moment and we think about the greater community, which when we were in person was really fun to do. Or I would be like, well, let's think about our teachers here at the school and the people who help with in the office and the janitors. What are we thankful for, and how can we send them love in our community? And so I've been trying to infuse a lot of that, especially now that we've been so apart. I'm like, let's think about our greater community and what the world needs right now. And so the kids they would respond to that even online. And I just think that's just such a testament to the world we're in right now and how they get it and they want to know how to have some of these tools to help as well.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Well, I want to hear a little bit more about have kids yoga with Meg and like the challenges and the rewards that you've experienced so far in your journey. So maybe start with your greatest challenge, and then you can also share your greatest reward in running your own business.
Well, I think the greatest challenge thus far is definitely obviously been the pandemic and the setting back and the moment where I realized I cannot do everything with a full-time job, 2 kids that I'm homeschooling, and my own health and mental health. And just that was that was hard to make that decision. And so that was a big challenge. But once I was like, okay, this has to go over here for a little while, just so I can get my feet back underneath me and do what's best for my family. I think once I made that decision, I just literally, like I mentioned earlier, put my own oxygen mask on and I just did yoga for myself for a while. And I just really was like, this is what I need. I need to come back to the mat. That always has helped with the answers. And I've experimented with different types of yoga. I've really embraced and gotten slightly obsessed with restorative yoga. And I just, every time I do it, I'm just like, oh my God, where has this been my entire life? I always thought it was too slow and I didn't need it because I was always going 90 miles an hour with my job and life. And this is like the exact opposite of it. But this is exactly what I need. So I just really focused on that. And I think the biggest challenge that I'm facing now is like getting it up and running again. But when I was working, the challenge, just the challenges is sometimes the kids, kids are kids and there's a lot of them in a group and you're just like, okay, you've got your one plan here. We're going to do this, but they're all like, no, we're going to run 1,000 miles around this cafeteria. And so I'm like, all right, let's just take this lovely planned course that I had for today and just do what you guys want to do and play some games and infuse some yoga and some mindfulness into that and just really meet them where they were is the biggest thing. And I think the second part of the question was the rewards. What are the rewards? And I think just seeing them, you know, really embrace some of the stuff that I love as much, which is like the quieter stuff and the journaling and the mindfulness aspects of it. You know, they would always be like, oh, I don't want to journal. I don't want to draw. We just got done with 8 hours of school, Miss Meg. We don't want to do this again. This isn't fun. And I'm like, oh, well, let's think about it. And just kind of shifting their mindset without letting them know you've shifted their mindset so that they think that they're still like, oh, this isn't a work assignment, but yet offering them these opportunities to be creative and have journals. I got all the kids a journal for my after school class, and they all had their own journals and their own set of coloring pencils, and we would do some exercises, and they would love it. And it was interesting. I had them doing this quiet, like peace be with me exercise mudra one morning or one day. And one of the other PTA parents was in the building, and he kind of popped in. And after the class, he came up to me and he was like, I have never seen those kids so quiet. He's like, I don't know what you did, but I'm going to do that tonight with my kids when I get home. Because he was like, that was amazing. He's like, we were watching you in there and how those kids you got them to just have a moment of mindfulness. And I was kind of like, yeah, I'm a little surprised that went so well in myself. But then they would ask for it, and they would want to have those moments. And so I think those would just be the biggest rewards that I had, was just when it would all come together, and they would be like, not only would they do it, but then they would want more. And I'm like, okay, you just kind of have to go with them in their high energy for a little while, and then just steer them back onto the path where you need to take a deep breath and think about themselves and then the greater community for a little while.
Yeah, it surprises me every time when it seems like the kids are super high energy. And sometimes I've gone, and then I'm doing a high energy game and I'm like, this isn't working. And then I bring it down to something very quiet. Like you said, it's kind of like, it's like you're like sneaking it in there, but you're slowly bringing it down. And then you realize, oh my God, what they really needed was a way to find this calm, because they really do want to be in that quiet. But sometimes, and we all know the feeling, you're just so worked up physically, mentally, that you're kind of stuck in it. So it's amazing when you see those moments of quiet as a yoga teacher. And like you said, when someone witnesses it and is able to reflect to you, like, wow, that was amazing. And you're like, you know what, that was that they got quiet. But that's so great to get that feedback. But yes, so I could relate to both your challenges and the rewards of seeing what happens, the magic that can happen when you're
it's so true. And I think it's hard also for kids to they want that quiet. Like as a parent, I know they're overstimulated and they need to have a moment. But when they're with their friends and they're all overstimulated, they just overstimulate each other even more. And so then you just kind of have to roll with it and then be like, all right, I have let you continue to roll with it. And now we need to relax. And, just having them go to their mats and have their moment of quiet, and whether it's journaling, or I'm also a really big fan of art projects. Like I grew up in an artistic family, and art has always been very important in my life. So I really try to infuse that into my kids' yoga classes. And, that would always also be a real big winner. Kids love that. I mean, my kids are like my test cases. And so I would be like, okay, I'm going to do this project in class next week. Let's see if this is going to work. Let's see how long it's really going to take. If I can, and they would love that too. My kids still walk around with the little pumpkin stress balls that we made 2-3 years ago. I can't even remember. I'm surprised they haven't exploded and got rice everywhere. But that was a project that was a hit. And so I think just infusing some creativity into the classes would also help to sort of bring the level down a little bit.
Yeah. And there's things like lowering the lights if you can, putting on calming music, changing the tone of your voice, all these very subtle things that we can do that they start to just kind of feel. And then It is. It's like a dance with what they're feeling and what you're going for. But I mean, that's I think why we all love this so much is because it's this work. It's ever changing. It's always creative.
Right.
Always surprises you.
Yeah, I'm always trying to figure out a way to bring art projects into my family yoga classes, but it's hard because some classes I would have like 8 families and of all different ranges. So I would kind of just always keep an art project literally in my bag under the desk. And then if classes that were a little bit smaller, like I remember a couple classes where I only had like 2 or 3 families and the kids were, old enough to do something, I would be like, hey, who wants to try something different? And, let's do a little mindful art project in class. And, the parents would be like, hey, yeah, we want to do that too. And I'm like, let's do that. And so just finding a way to like move that into the family yoga classes was just also really rewarding. And, and just letting people know yoga is not just about a movement. It's about breathing and taking a moment to pause. And you can do yoga anywhere just by, having a quiet moment, or even just like before you have to play a big soccer game or take a test, just to sit at your desk and just take a deep breath in and repeat a mantra to yourself. That's something I also am really a fan of, is like making up mantras for kids and letting them make up their own mantras. And we would do it in family yoga class and kids yoga class. And I'm like, this is, and I'm like, I put it into context like, oh, before you have to do a test, or maybe you have to clean your room and you don't really want to, and so I have the families would like work together to come up with a good mantra for themselves, for their family. And sometimes they would share it with other families. And I was like, that's okay. You don't have to share it if you don't want to, and then I would say a mantra that would work. And, they love that. And just like teaching them that these are tools that, again, you can take off the mat and use in your own home, in your own everyday life. I just think that is such a reward as well.
Yes, absolutely. Well, you have been listening since the beginning, so you know how the episodes always end with the kids yoga gem. So you've heard so many gems. I would love to hear yours. So if you could share your one piece of wisdom with someone sharing yoga with children, what would that be?
I think my advice would be to keep it personal and something that reflects you, because then you have more passion in it. And for me, that's games. I have always been a kiddo who loved games. As a parent, we play lots of games in my family with my kids. And so I have just found that games are such a fun way for kids to connect, whether it's in person or online. And that just makes it so much fun for them. And, there's also a little bit of educational components in there that they don't realize. They're learning some yoga, they're learning some mindfulness, they're learning breathing techniques, and they're having so much fun while they do it. And for me, it's fun too, because then I really get into it, and I always plan at least two or three games for every class. And then we kind of read the room, see what they need at this moment. But just something that comes from me that I'm passionate about to infuse into every one of my classes really helps set the success of the class. And then the kids can see that I believe in it too, that I'm buying into it, that I'm having just as much fun playing all these games as they are. And I think that's something that resonates with them. And so I just think, don't force it, just be yourself and it will come. The classes will come, and that will just make them so much more fun and successful and rewarding for everyone involved, the teacher, the students, the parents, everybody.
Yes. That's kind of the theme I've noticed throughout this is, so yoga isn't one thing. Yoga is fully being who you are. So whoever you are and whatever you love or are passionate about, or something that you're using in your life right now that you can incorporate, it's the intention with which you're doing it. So it's the intention that you're doing that art project or that you're playing the game. That's where the yoga is. So
Right.
that's kind of a theme I've seen through this conversation. Something to remember for people is that bring in those things that you love with the intention of being mindful about it and being aware of what you're doing.
Exactly.
Well,
Yes.
it was so good to talk to you. I want people to find you and learn more about you and your business. So can you share how to
Yes.
get in touch.
Yes, I'm online. My website is kidsyogawithmeg.com. My favorite platform is Instagram, and that's Kids Yoga with Meg on Instagram. I try to be pretty active there. And then on Facebook, I am Kids and Family Yoga with Meg on Facebook. So it's a little different, but you can still find me. And those are the best places. I hope to be offering some Zoom classes here in the next couple of weeks. And then as we try to figure out what is going on here in Seattle, Washington, some outside classes and get into some studios and start offering family yoga. Everybody needs it.
Wonderful. So no matter where you are, you
Yep.
could look into those Zoom classes right now.
Exactly.
And then, yeah.
Yes, exactly. So hopefully we'll be getting all of that up and running very, very soon.
Great. Well, again, thank you for taking the time. Thank you for being a loyal listener and for all the work you're doing. And it was so wonderful to connect with you.
Yes, it was. Thank you, Jessica. And thank you for this opportunity and for the great work that you do on this podcast. It has been a huge, just a huge resource for me. And I just look forward to the episodes every week. I've learned so much just from you and all of your guests, and just made some great connections because of this podcast. So I'm grateful for that as well.
That means so much. Thank you. Well, have a wonderful rest of your day.
Yes, thanks. You too.
Bye-bye.
Bye.